up, guys? I hope you had a good weekend. Hopefully, you're having a good day today. Before we get to our Bible study today, I've got one thing that I want to get to, and that is I am going to give away a $25 gift card. And you say, Cody, what do I need to do to get this $25 gift card? You don't have to do anything because it has already been won. I already know who's going to get it. And the way that they got it a week ago on our Jonah Bible study, if you made it all the way to the end of that video, I told you that if you text me the fire emoji, then you would be entered for a chance to win a $25 gift card to the place of your choosing. And there were, get this was a big number of those that text me the fire emoji. Two. There were two people that made it to the end of that video and text me the fire emoji. And so those two people were Evan Walker and Grace Bolliard. Both made it to the end of that video, and they both text me. And by random draw, Evan won't think it is, but that's okay. Grace Bolliard was the winner of the $25 gift card. And so, Grace, you'll have to tell me where you want your gift card to. And then, Evan, well, you're out of luck. All right. So, for those of you that are watching these videos, I really do appreciate it. I'm not just doing it because it's fun. I mean, it is very fun for me to be able to do these videos and to study this passage even for myself. And so I enjoy doing it. And if somebody's getting something out of it, even if one person is getting something out of it, I'm still going to do it because I enjoy it. And I just want you guys and to be a blessing in your guys' life to just take something each day and apply it to your life. So hopefully you guys are enjoying these videos. And so today we are going to be in Jonah chapter number 2. If you'll take your Bibles real quick, Jonah chapter number 2. Jonah chapter number 2 is kind of where you start losing people. You remember Jonah chapter number 1, we all know the story that he got on a ship in Joppa trying to go to Tarshish. There was a massive storm that came up in the judgment of God, and the only choice that they had to make the storm stop was Jonah being thrown overboard. So that's what they did. They picked up Jonah, they threw him overboard. And remember at the very end of chapter number 1, verse number 17, at the end of that verse, it says that Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. So we know that Jonah, when he hit the water, we're going to read here in chapter number 2 here in a little while that he sank down a pretty decent ways. And apparently, right when he thought he was going to die, all of a sudden, and the fish came along, swallowed him up, and he was in the belly of the fish for 3 days. And that's the point where you lose people. There are skeptics and Christians that argue back and forth whether this is a true story or whether it is just some made-up kind of parable or story or something like that, trying to teach something. And you know, I could go through different evidences and all those kind of things, kind of like we did for the resurrection last Wednesday. We could go through those about why this is a true story, but I thought I would just give you the best evidence that I could, and then we'll just move on. This is a true historical story. Turn your Bibles to the book of Matthew, Matthew chapter number 12. Matthew chapter number 12. We're going to look at verse number 39. What's the best evidence that I can give that this was a true story that really did happen? Look at verse number 39. It says, "But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas." Okay, so it's kind of a weird spelling in the book of Matthew in the New Testament, but it really is talking about the prophet Jonah. And how do we know that he's talking about the prophet Jonah? Well, look what Jesus says after that. Look at verse number 40. "For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And the men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment with this generation, and shall condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and behold, a greater than Jonah is here." Okay, what is the best evidence that I can give that this is a true story? Jonah really was real. He really did disobey God. He really got on a boat. He really got thrown overboard. He really got eaten by a great fish. He really did stay there for 3 days and 3 nights and really did get vomited up on shore in just a few verses that we're from here right now. What is the best evidence that I can give? It's that Jesus said so. Jesus in the New Testament said, yeah, that's a true story. Jonah really did get eaten by a great fish. He really was there 3 days and 3 nights. And he said, just like he was in the belly of the fish for 3 days, he talked about the Son of Man being in the heart of the earth for 3 days. Well, what was he talking about? Well, the Son of Man, that was what he called himself, and he was going to be in the heart of the earth for 3 days. We know that was his burial. He was going to be in the heart of the earth. He was going to be buried for 3 days, and then he was going to raise from the dead. So, what's the greatest evidence that I can give? Jesus said it was real. And if Jesus said it was real and it wasn't, that means that he lied. And if he lied, there are two things that happened. Number one, my Bible says that Jesus was 100% man, but he was also 100% God. And if he lied, that means he was not 100% God. Number two, if Jesus lied when he died on the cross, he was a sinner just like you and just like me. And when he died on that cross, it didn't mean anything at all. So that is why I personally take this story as a true historical event, that Jonah really did spend 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a fish because Jesus said so. Now, that's not the only thing that gets argued about Jonah chapter number 2. The other thing that gets argued about Jonah, or another thing that gets argued about Jonah chapter number 2, is the fact, and this is Christians that argue back and forth, they're trying to decide whether Jonah was truly repentant of what he had done, or if he was just kind of just saying a prayer, basically trying to say, well, sorry about that. I think you guys would agree that there is a difference between being sorry that you got caught and truly repentant of something. What does the Bible mean by repentant? Well, it means that it's a change of mind about something, but it's not just you change your mind. It's a change of mind resulting in an action. What does that mean? Well, it means that there were sins that you did all the time, right? And you didn't find anything wrong with them. And then all of a sudden, when you got saved, you changed your mind about that sin. You said, no, that's not right. That needs to not be in my life. I don't want that to be in my life. It's wrong. I shouldn't be doing that. You changed your mind about that, and it resulted in a change of action. If you were truly repentant of it, you were heartbroken for the fact that you did that, to the point where I don't want to do that anymore. Now, does that mean that you're going to be sinless? Does it mean that you're never going to do that sin again? No. Unfortunately, we're still sinners. We still fall flat on our face sometimes. We still sin, but it means that you have a true a true heartbrokenness over that sin. You've had a change of mind, and it resulted in a change of action. So, was Jonah truly repentant here in chapter number 2? Let me tell you what chapter number 2 is. It is a prayer. It's how many verses is it? It's a 10-verse prayer of Jonah. And sometimes it's going to kind of look like something that you would see in the book of Psalms. And in fact, sometimes this chapter is called the Psalm of Jonah. And so, was he truly repentant? Well, in the next couple of videos, we may talk about that and see if we think that he was truly repentant over what he had done, or if he wasn't. But what we're going to do for the next few recordings of this is we're going to take some of the truths that we find here in this prayer, and because whether he was repentant, truly repentant or not, the truths that he prays are they are biblical truths. And the one that we're going to talk about today is it's almost so elementary school that I almost didn't do it. It was almost like I was teaching something that was below you guys as teenagers. It was like I should have been teaching it to little kids in junior church. But truth be told, it's a truth that not only kids need to hear, but teenagers need to hear it, and adults need to hear it too. And so, what truths am I talking about? Look at Jonah chapter number 2. Look what he says in verse number 1. It says, "Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly." All right, so that's again, it's kind of setting the scene where we're at. We are inside the belly of that fish. Jonah's going to kind of tell us what was going on when he was inside the belly of that fish. Look at his prayer. Look at what he says in verse number 2. "And he said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord." Okay, what does that mean? He cried by means of his affliction unto the Lord. Okay, well, you got to remember where he was, right? He was inside the belly of a fish. Now, when you were in junior church, or you were a little kid and you read like a picture book or something that explained the story of Jonah, or you saw up on the flannel graph board, if your guys' teachers even use the flannel graph board, or you saw some kind of PowerPoint or pictures in a junior church curriculum or something like that. A lot of times it would show Jonah, and you can kind of picture him there, just kind of sitting, and he's got water kind of up to his chest or his waist level, and it looks like he's in this great big room, right? And the stomach was just massive on this whale. Well, unfortunately, that probably wasn't the case. When he got swallowed by this whale or a great fish or whatever it was, the tight squeeze that it probably was to get down the throat of that whale is probably pretty tight. And so then he gets into the stomach of this fish. All right, I don't mean to be gross, and I'm not trying to gross you out, but let's be realistic about what's going on here. Okay, the pictures that we see, he's sitting there in what looks to be water. He wasn't floating in water. There might have been some water in there, but he's inside the stomach of this fish. So you've got, and again, I don't mean to be rude or nasty or anything like that. You've got digestive fluids that are kind of floating around there. I've read some things where those digestive juices were probably bleaching out his skin and making him look real patchy and those kind of things. It probably just destroyed his hair that he had, or a beard if he had one. So it's in a very tight squeeze. You've got dead fish that are floating around. Okay, if you've ever been around dead fish, you know what that smell is like. It is just rotten, rancid kind of smell. He was probably experiencing that. And then again, let's remember, he's not only just floating around with fish, he was inside a fish. So it's not smelling real good on the inside of that fish's stomach, with digested things that are floating around and all these kind of things. It was a disgusting, disgusting place. Now, why am I telling you all this? I'm not doing it to disgust you in any way or anything like that. But he says that he cried by means of his affliction. I think we would all agree that he is in a position right now where he is in some kind of an affliction. Okay, an affliction is kind of a hard time that comes into our life. It causes us pain. It causes us heartbreak. And the affliction that he is feeling is not one that we are ever going to experience, or at least I hope that I will never experience. But what am I trying to get at? That we all have things in our life that come in that they are hard. I've talked to some of you guys about some of the things that have happened in your life. You're only, 18 or younger, and it's some of the things that have gone on in your guys' life, man, they're hard. I can't imagine having to go through and having to live through those things. And I've told you guys before, I can't stand it when adults will say that oh, they're just teenagers, they have it easy. And you guys don't have it easy at all. And some of those afflictions come into our life and they just hurt so bad that it feels like you're alone. But here's the cool part. Look at what Jonah says. Look at verse number 2 again. And said, I cried by reason of mine affliction. All these things, this bad stuff that's going on unto the Lord. And look at the next part. He says, and he heard me. He just simply says, God heard my prayer. The prayer that he's going to give, I know God heard me. I am in a trial that seems so hard. It hurts so bad, but I know that God heard me. So what truth was I talking about? One of the truths that we see here in the second chapter of the book of Jonah is that no matter what's going on in your life, God's there. No matter whether it's something small or whether it's something just so bad and excruciating, we get the truth here that you can pray. As a child of God, you can pray. And no matter what's going on, he will and does hear you. He goes on from there. Look at what he says at the end of the verse. He says, out of the belly of hell cried I. Okay, there were some people that kind of get this mixed up, like he actually died and he actually went to hell. That's not what's going on here. What is he doing? He's looking for a poetic way of saying that I feel so far away from God that I just can't stand it. We all know that what makes hell, a literal place called hell, what makes it so bad? Well, it's not the fire and the heat and the suffering and the screaming and the pain and all those that's not what it is. What makes hell so bad, what makes hell hell, is the fact that God is not there. He's not present. So what is Jonah saying here? He's not saying that he actually died and went to hell. He says that I feel like I have the feelings like I'm separated from God. I'm so far away from God that he just can't hear me, that I can't see him, I can't feel him in my life. And you know what? Sometimes when we go through the afflictions in our life, they hurt so bad to where it feels like God is just not there. It feels like God abandoned us. It feels like God's not close. It feels like we're so far away from God that we can't turn back and go back to him. But look at the end of the verse again. Look at verse number 2. Look at the very end of the verse. Out of the belly of hell cried I. Feel so far away from God. But look what he says. And thou heardest my voice. He says, I feel so far away from you. But I know the truth is that I can call on you. I can pray to you. And you hear me. I know you're there. I know you hear my prayer. Here's what I'm trying to get at with this Bible study today. No matter what you're going through, no matter how small or how excruciatingly hard and painful it is that you're going through, no matter if it feels like it's never going to end, or maybe it's almost getting ready to end, but there's going to be something really hard at the end of it, no matter how you're feeling, can I tell you this? If you're a child of God, you are not too far away from God to where he can't hear you. He loves you. He still hears you. And even though it may feel like he's so far away, he still is there for you. So here's what I would challenge you guys. If you're going through something like that, no matter how big or how small it is, will you take today, take some time and pour out to God what is on your heart? Because I can guarantee you this, I can show you up and down God's word where he assures us of this, that when you pray to him, he will hear you. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope that's a blessing to you. And I will see you guys on Wednesday when we have our youth group lesson. See you guys.